This is your host, Danny, and this is English Plus Podcast. Today's Do You Know episode is about Queen Elizabeth I. Of course, we're not talking about the current Queen Elizabeth. We're talking about Queen Elizabeth I. So, if you want to know more about Queen Elizabeth I, join us in this episode, Do You Know from English Plus Podcast. Elizabeth's parents were disappointed when she was born. They desperately wanted a son. But Elizabeth eventually became one of England's greatest rulers. Elizabeth Tudor was born in 1533. Her father, King Henry VIII of England, had Elizabeth's mother beheaded so he could marry again. He wanted to have a son to be king after him. Young Elizabeth was smart and stubborn. She studied history, learned to speak several languages, and loved music and dancing. In 1547, King Henry died. Elizabeth's younger brother Edward became king. Edward only lived for a few years after he took the throne. Elizabeth's older sister Mary became queen when he died, but she also lived only a few more years. When Mary died in 1558, Elizabeth was crowned queen. She faced a very difficult situation. Protestants and Roman Catholics were fighting over religion. Harvests failed and food was expensive. Poor people roamed the countryside stealing food. France and Spain, the two strongest countries in Europe, were enemies of England. Mary Stuart, Queen of neighboring Scotland, dreamed of ruling England as well. Most men thought that because Elizabeth was a woman, she was not fit to rule. But she proved them all wrong. She chose wise advisors to help her rule and persuaded Parliament to support her plans. She set up a new Church of England that pleased most of her people. She gave more power to local governments in towns and counties. She made England richer by encouraging exploration and trade with other countries. William Shakespeare and many other writers and artists produced great works during her reign. Elizabeth was very successful at protecting England against enemies. She showed great courage in 1588 when Spain sent an armada to attack. The armada was wiped out by the English Navy. Many princes and even kings asked Elizabeth to marry them so that they could become King of England. Elizabeth refused to marry so that England would not have a foreign king. By the time Elizabeth died in 1603, England had been transformed. It was strong, proud, and successful. Looking back, people said that the time Elizabeth ruled was a golden age. They fondly called her Good Queen Bess. So, that is in brief what I wanted to share with you about Queen Elizabeth I. And with this comes the end of today's episode. But don't forget, you can join me for other Do You Know episodes and of course the rest of our program, which is full. We have a few episodes every day and they're about different things. So check them all and choose the ones that you like the best. We have something for everyone's taste. And don't forget that you can find more on the website EnglishPlusPodcast.com. You will not only find transcripts or texts about the things that I talk about here in the podcast, you will also find exercises, PDF downloadable worksheets. Depends on the episode, of course. Not for every episode, but for some episodes, we have interactive exercises, PDF downloadable worksheets, and more. We also have one premium episode every day, so if you would like to access all the premium episodes, you can subscribe to English Plus Premium on Apple Podcasts, or you can become a patron of English Plus Podcast on Patreon. You will find the links in the description of the episode. With that being said, this is your host, Danny. Thank you very much for listening to another episode from English Plus Podcast. I will see you next time.